Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive, proudly supporting our friends at Coppin State. I've got my new Coppin gear on, the 125. It looks so sharp. Big appreciation to Dr. Jenkins and everybody over at Coppin. We've been continuing those conversations. They're graduating over there this week, so hang in there for all of you graduates out there, all the mothers, and all the sons of mothers, including this guy. We're going to be doing the Maryland Lottery Crab Cake Tour. Not this week. We're going to be out in Vegas this week at the Maryland Party, but we'll be back on it on the 28th. We'll be down at Fadley's later on in the month when the St. Louis Cardinals come to town. Luke Jones will be there. He will be there all week as the Minnesota Twins come to Baltimore after kicking the Orioles' ass pretty good last weekend. Orioles got off the schneid a little bit over the weekend, win 2 out of 3 in Anaheim. If you did not follow along late night, that's what we're here for. Luke, what's going on, man? Some good news finals. Certainly not the kind of trip you want. And we were wondering whether the general manager, the hitting coach, the pitching coach, everybody's fireable this time last week, but they've settled in at 9 under 500.
Well, you hope they haven't settled in at 9 under, but they've got work to do. There's no question about it. And we've talked about it. The challenge to when you fall 10 games under 500 is you can want to go on a 12-game winning streak all you want, but we know even great teams don't do that often. So you really do just have to plug away and find a way to win series and win another series and win another one after that. And if you can do that over time, you can start creeping your way back closer to 500. So I'm not going to sit here and say that winning 2 out of 3 from the LA Angels, who are similarly poor in terms of their record, is anything to do cartwheels over. But when you're where the Orioles are right now and how little success they've had over the course of 2025, you'll take a series win. And I think more importantly than even the series win, Zach Eflin returns on Sunday. They had Tyler O'Neill return for this series. You got to get healthier. I mean, we've talked about it. The injuries aren't a cop-out. The injuries don't explain everything we've seen, but we know it's a very real part of what's gone on for them in 2025. So for them to turn things around to the degree that they're going to be in the race and they're going to be relevant and interesting over the course of the season, getting healthy or at least healthier is going to be that's a must. There's no doubt about that. So you look at how the last few days have played out. Kyle Gibson, not so much on Saturday night, but Sagano pitches really well on Friday night. And Eflin, I'm not going to sit here and say that he was fantastic, but he settled in after a rocky first inning and gave them a chance to win. And oh yeah, it was also nice to point out the Orioles scored 7 runs, most they've scored in a game since the day before Easter back on April 19th. So it's a step. It's not a big step. I'm not sitting here saying that a series win over the Angels proves anything other than, hey, you got a series win over the Angels and you salvage some semblance of feeling okay about yourselves to end a road trip that started off really poorly.
I don't know if we belabor this as they come home in regard to what's good and what's bad. And when you're this far under 500, what's good is getting a real pitcher back, right? And
Sure.
in Eflin, that's good news. Good news is Batista's still on the mound. It's the middle of May. It feels like he's moving into more of a rotation where he could pitch 2 days in a row, which were questions we had in February and March. So I go back to those spring training questions we had and saying, what's being answered and what's being challenged and what's just falling apart. I mean, Jackson Holliday looks like a Major League Baseball player. Kobe Mayo does not. Heston Kjerstad does not. These pitchers and who's going to settle in and where. I mean, this time last year, we're like, well, who is this Suarez guy? What is this? At this
Right.
point, Brian Baker looks like it might be okay, and Batista looks like he's at least healthy and can be your closer the rest of the year and give you results you're looking for if you have a 4-2 lead in the eighth inning, right? And you know what I mean? You have to have that first or a 6-4 lead, whatever it's going to be at this point with this team. But I'm trying to find like signs of life, vital signs in
Yeah.
some way to say, can they get up and be this? And dude, you're so right. And every time I watch games with my wife, I channel you because I hear the nasty little prickly Luke Jones over here. Hitters have to hit. Young hitters have to hit. Rutschman, Henderson. And until they do, this is this isn't going to go until those guys go. And you've been right about that all along. And even when they get the pitching right, in order for this thing to go, Adley Rutschman's hitting 195 when they start the game on Sunday. It is, I mean, we were on fire at the end of last summer about it. Here
Yeah,
we are now. I don't know what to say about the people they have who are failing, the individual players that are not the collective, not
sure.
the injuries, not Mike Elias or Sig Mejdal or how much money they spent or whatever. They gave Charlie Morton a lot of money. He's failing. Adley Rutschman has the biggest belief in the organization. He's failing right now.
Yeah, no question. And you mentioned another positive from the weekend that I'll point out more specifically. Gunnar Henderson's starting to hit the ball and he's starting to hit the long ball. I mean, Gunnar Henderson's numbers, they're not where you want them to be from a peak performance standpoint, but at the end of business on Sunday, his average is up to 264. He's slugging 473. He hit 2 home runs over the weekend. He had a big RBI triple on Friday night that gave them a nice insurance run in a close game. So that was good to see. But you're right, and I wrote this at BaltimorePositive.com going into the weekend. As I'm kind of reflecting on the Orioles being 10 games under 500 and trying to be level-headed about it, but also trying to be realistic and understanding the gravity of the situation for them. You need your stars to be stars. I mean, look, we anticipated the pitching having issues, and then you add in where Grayson Rodriguez is health wise. You add in that Zach Eflin goes on the IL, April 7th or whatever it was, and he misses a month of the season. Some of the other guys that have scuffled, other depth players that could have been in that conversation going down. You mentioned Albert Suarez, for example. It'd be nice to have a healthy version of him, given where they were with their pitching staff,
Or
either
something
rotation.
like him, right? I
Sure,
mean, that's what
sure, no question.
a month
But
ago when everything's scuffling, we're saying who's
sure,
going to come in and be better than we think they're going to be, right?
sure. But at the same time, it does come back to your stars. It does come back to the expectations. And look, some of this is heavy as the crown, right? Some of this is just that's the reality. When you're drafted 1-1, in the case of Adley Rutschman, when you become the top prospect in baseball at one point, like Gunnar Henderson was, and the fact that Gunnar was Rookie of the Year and he finished fourth in MVP voting last year, you need your stars to be stars. I mean, a year ago at this time, and this isn't hyperbole. This is go back and do a Twitter search, do a social media search, and you find this. We were making soft, and let me be clear, this wasn't to say they were going to the Hall of Fame, but the parallels were not difficult to see in terms of where the Orioles were when they drafted Adley Rutschman with their first pick under Mike Elias and Gunnar Henderson with their second pick under Mike Elias at a point when they were essentially an expansion team starting over because they were that bad coming out of 2018. That sounds like something similar in the history of this town from a sports standpoint. Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis. Again, not that these guys are going to be those players, Hall of Famers, but in terms of importance, in terms of being the faces of your franchise, a year ago, as recently as 7 or 8 months ago, we were talking about them in those terms. And
We're talking about giving them
especially,
400, $500 million.
no
Is what we're
question.
talking
And,
about,
and that's
right?
a big part of it as well, right? I mean, you think the last World Series team for the Orioles, Eddie Murray and Cal Ripken leading the way, right? I mean, that's what you're
Well,
talking
let's
about.
give Adley
So,
Rutschman or Gunner 100 million. Well, they won't take 100 million. It's not enough for them, and they're
but
hitting 210, right?
well, I was
So,
just going to say at this point, I wouldn't want to give Adley Rutschman 100 million with the way he's played over the last calendar year. So, I mean, you've got to get these guys going. Gunnar Henderson is more and more looking like himself, more and more starting, whether he's playing like he did the first half of last year, he's playing at a higher level now, and you're really seeing that. Rutschman, I mean, he had a gift RBI triple on Sunday, did hit the ball hard a couple times, had almost a home run taken away, could have been a home run, at least was going to hit off the top of the wall later in the game. So it was good to see that. I will say this, I want to be objectively fair in looking at him and how he's playing now compared to how he played the second half of last year. He has made better contact overall. The walk rate has gone back up. The strikeouts he's cut down on from where they were in the second half of last year. But all that being said, he's still hitting 203. I mean, he has a 338 slugging percentage. I mean, he's got a an OPS that's in the low 600s at this point in time. That's not a 1-1. That's not what the Orioles signed up for Adley Rutschman to be. And I think what makes it even more painful, and this applies for both these guys really, is you see the absolute star, the rock star that Bobby Witt has become. And remember, he was drafted second in that 2019 draft. Look, it was always possible, considering he was a high school shortstop. High school player compared to a college player is always going to have more upside. There's more potential, but there's also a higher bust rate. And at the time, Rutschman was considered the much, much, much safer prospect. And if Adley Rutschman was continuing to be the guy he was over his first 2 years in the majors, that's not to say that Bobby Witt still wouldn't be a better player, but you'd look at that and say, okay, no one can tell the future. No one knows what's going to happen 5 or 6 years out. Even if you're the smartest baseball guy that's out there, you're still not going to know exactly how guys are going to develop. But we still love Adley Rutschman. Well, that over time, that decision's looking worse and worse and worse. So, what's the answer? I don't know at this point in time.
Well,
I
it's
mean, last
different
year,
if you never saw the light on, right? I mean, we saw the
right?
light on in this guy from the minute he came up,
Yeah,
changed the team, they started winning, the whole streak thing about not getting swept and him being involved in all of that.
sure.
It's like we got a different player here, and all of a sudden you've already started. Well, he won't be a catcher after he's 30 and he's already 26. I mean, I don't know that Wieters ever went this bad, and I don't know at what point we looked at Matt Wieters and realized
Yeah.
he wasn't going to be Johnny Bench. He was going to be, I don't know. I don't know what a middling
I mean, he was better than
strong
Midler.
hitting catcher is,
I
you
mean, he was
know?
still an all-star catcher. It's just he wasn't this guy that was going to have a fruitful 15-year, at least Hall of Very Good kind of career, which I think that was kind of the minimum thought of what Matt Wieters was going to be. And it's funny you brought this up, and I don't say this to be flippant. This is a very simplistic way at looking at Adley Rutschman right now. But his first 2 years, and when I say his first 2 years, I mean from the time he was called up till roughly the All-Star break last year, July 1, when he got hit on the hand with the foul tip, wherever you want to start the timeline, right? But those first 2 years, Adley Rutschman was better than Matt Wieters was at his best. He was better than Matt Wieters was at any point. However, since then, Adley Rutschman's kind of been, and I'm not talking about Wieters when he moved on to the Nationals or the Cardinals and was more of a part-time player, but Wieters as an Oriole, Adley Rutschman's kind of been worse than Matt Wieters was at any
I
point.
agree with that.
So it's just that's such an odd contrast right there that you go from one extreme to the other. Look, I don't say this that I'm writing him off that this is who he's going to be the rest of his career, but last year you could at least we kept talking about what? Is he healthy? Is he healthy? He's got to have something going on, whether it's the hand, he had a back issue in August that even kept him out for a game or two, but you're this far out and yes, he's been better. It hasn't been as brutal as it was in the second half of last year, but you need to get this guy going. And I'll say at the very least, if he's going to continue to hit in the top half of the order, whether he's batting second like where he's mostly batted, or batting cleanup like he
It
did on
feels
Sunday,
damaged to me in his mojo. He was like a
yeah,
leader of the team. He was a pat the guy on the
yeah,
ass guy. He was a rah rah guy. He was an enthusiasm guy. What happened here? And I don't, I don't want to play psychologist on the
yeah,
radio, but I've watched baseball 50 years. I don't know that I've seen anything quite like this. I mean, and I've been through all the 1-1s. Ben McDonald notwithstanding. Going back to I didn't go back to Steve Dalkowski, but I go back to Jim Fuller. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And Earl Williams and what potential is for a catcher in that case. This organization dealt for 150 years ago. This is a 1-1 who did it on the field, not a guy
sure,
that might be able to do it. See, we saw it. We saw it happen early in his career. Um, and to your point, it's so important. The guys that are that good, that can be that good, they're not every Heston Kjerstad and Colton Cowser is going to work out, but the ones who get to the big leagues and they show you they can do it, the fact that they wake up 24 months later and they're in their 20s and can't do it, it's weird.
yeah. And look, I mean, Adley Rutschman, even as he profiles right now, I mean, he's still a major league player and all, you're not going to get rid of him or anything crazy, but you need him to be a difference maker. as much as we can break all of this down, and they have so many issues right now. I mean, even after winning 2 out of 3, I mean, let's face it, the Angels gave them a pretty big hand a few different times on Sunday. I mean, the Angels did the kind of things that we've seen the Orioles been doing. That explains why you're in last place and 10 games under 500 as far as your low point. But you can break this down and you can keep looking at every element of this team. And let's face it, nothing has really been particularly good. I mean, the starting pitching has been very poor. The bullpen over the last 3 weeks has been poor. The offense has been not as poor as the starting pitching, but well below average to poor.
They don't have
Uh,
one player who would be an all-star right now. That they literally they don't have one player who's.
Probably not.
I mean,
I mean,
Mullins went 0 for 20 over the
yeah.
weekend, and we were all about
I
him,
mean,
right?
O'Hearn's kind of been their most consistent player, but at his best, and I don't say this to be to take a shot at him, but he's a DH, and he's no, it's the heavy side of a platoon, but he's not going to start against many left-handed starters. I mean, that's what you're talking about. He's the heavy side of a platoon DH, and yeah, he can play a little first, and he can play a little right field for you. But no, all of those issues acknowledged, and that's not to let anyone else off the hook. But Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, when this team did what they did 2 years ago, they were leading the way. And yeah, you can talk about some of these. You can talk about Santander. You can talk about Aaron Hicks being a nice veteran presence like he was at the time. You can go down the list of their pitch. I mean, Bradish was phenomenal over the course of the season. Grayson Rodriguez was excellent over the second half. You can talk about all those things, but very, very plainly, point blank, who are their best players? Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, and Felix Bautista. Well, Bautista they lost at the end of that season, and is to your point, he's performing well. Gave up a home run on Sunday. That's the time you want him to do it, not in a one
Dude,
run
it's
game,
nice
right?
having a closer, but you have to have a lead. They haven't had a whole
And
lot of
that's the
that.
thing. I mean, he went a week in between appearances because, and this is where I know some fans, because some will want to pick on Brandon Hyde about every single thing, and believe me, there are plenty of things that you can point to. I mentioned the lineup construction, for example,
And
but
some we can't even mention.
sure, but at the same time, with Felix Bautista, you're in a position where at this point in time, and maybe that's going to start changing as we get into the summer, but for right now, they're not pitching him back-to-back days. So you're in a spot where you don't want to waste him pitching just because he needs work in a game where you're down 7-3 in the eighth inning. Because why? You might be in a save situation the following day and you don't want to burn him and then he's unavailable the next night. But they've kind of been in this holding pattern when they had this losing streak that they had going into this series, that he's sitting in the bullpen then. And you want to get him in the game, but to your point, you want it to be a save situation. You want it to be a meaningful situation. But it's been good to see him do what he's done. He's looked really good overall. I mean, the fastball velo has still ticked up. It's not where it was pre-injury, and he may never get back to 102 or 101 or 100 consistently. But I'll say this much: his split looks really good. I actually think his slider might be better than it's ever been. I mean, that was more of a show me pitch for him, and he's thrown some really good ones in his last few appearances. So maybe we're just seeing the evolution of Felix Bautista post Tommy John. And look, he can still hit 99. I mean, it's not like he doesn't have fastball velo, but if he has better secondaries to go with that, that's still going to play really well when you're 6'5" and you've got the extension on the mound that he has, where it looks like he's, the pitch is coming into your living room, so to speak. So, but to get back to my big picture point here, this team's going to pull themselves out of this. And again, is it completely fair? No. Is it a case where it sounds like you're giving other players a pass? Sure, if you want to, but they need Adley Rutschman to play like the two-time All-Star catcher that he is. They need Gunnar Henderson to play like the All-Star shortstop that he was last year. And we're starting to see that from Gunnar. And they need Felix Bautista to be Felix Bautista, even if their save situations have been fewer than you'd like to see. So that's again, that's the very simple, basic way of looking at it. But we talk about this all the time with the Ravens, with Lamar. Your stars need to be stars in the biggest spots. I mean, that's one thing we've talked about with the Ravens in January. And it's been baffling because the guy's so brilliant and he has played better the last couple of Januaries, but we've talked about it. Lamar being what he's been in the regular season, which is absolutely brilliant, but that not showing up in January, and being such a source of frustration because you've seen this guy play at such a brilliant level for not a game, not 2 games, not a month. We've seen this guy do it year in and year out when he's healthy, and it hasn't translated to January. So this isn't that. I mean, we'll forget about October for the time being. I mean, they've got to get back to 500 before that's even a meaningful talking point at this point. But you need your best players to be your best players. I mean, again, that's a Captain Obvious no duh statement, but that's where the Orioles have been. And I that's not to say that Adley Rutschman shoulders all the blame, but man, I mean, this is a long time that he has not been a very good player. And it is baffling because of what you said. I mean, he struggled for about 3.5 weeks when he was called up in mid-May of 2022. And then from that point on, he got to the second week of June, and the rest of the year, he was the MVP of the team. 2023, he was an all-star catcher from opening day through the end of the season. And even last year, I mean, we talked about it. I remember you and I at Fadley's talking about Adley Rutschman, and it had profiled a little bit differently, but he was hitting the long ball. He had really good numbers through the final week of June. And then we thought maybe it was the foul tip, the hand, his health. I mean, you can't keep just saying, unless there's some chronic issue we don't know about, that doesn't explain the start he's gotten off to this year. I mean, he had the brilliance on opening day, 2 home runs. And since then, you've kind of just been waiting for that guy to come back. And like I said, he's drawn more walks. The plate discipline has looked more Rutschman like, but the rest of the production, I mean, you're still waiting for it to be there. So, you're hoping maybe Sunday. I mean, a gift triple that guy loses, in the sun or whatever. You ended up having 2 hits. You're hoping that can get him going because if this team's going to climb out of the hole they've dug themselves in, it's all hands on deck, and you need your best players to be really good performers for you because they're the guys that you expect to do the extraordinary things. This rotation's not going to do extraordinary things. Zach Eflin can give you good things. Sagano can continue to do what he's done, I suppose. I mean, he's been one of the very few bright spots. Dean Kramer's looked way better, but is this rotation ever going to be a strength? No,
Well, you
of
mentioned
course
all of
not.
this, and I was going to say, you mentioned all these pitchers, and none of them are all stars. Sagano's
No,
just getting through 5, 6. You know what I mean?
I
Like
mean he's
looks like a
crafty.
number 2 or 3 starter.
Yeah,
Maybe somewhere in there, 2 on a good day, a 4 on a bad day, but not untenable 4-digit ERAs. And where we are with Morton and even waiting on Kyle Gibson all this
yeah,
time. Um, I don't know where the solutions are coming from. And that's where I'm like, where's Grayson Rodriguez at this point? And I'm yelling about that 10 minutes after Eflin gets back. I mean, if they're going to be, if they're going to play 500 ball, right? Like for a while here, just to tread some water, they're going to need to get better starts. They need to and they got a little bit of that over the last week.
yeah.
But like having starting pitchers be 3, 4 innings into this 4 out of 5 nights, it's just not that's not going to work. And I don't know who their length guys are. Eflin is a godsend for him if he's going to stand on the mound every fifth day for the
Yeah.
next 4 months.
No question, no question. And again, when I, so much of my talk as we're, talking in this specific conversation is on Rutschman and on Gunnar Henderson. Of course, everyone else needs to be better too. This isn't picking on Adley Rutschman that's all that plagues them. There's plenty that plagues them. But if I'm trying to rank the things that I feel some conviction about getting better, I'd like to think it's Adley Rutschman, but as we go on longer and longer, I start to wonder, like, okay, is this just who he is now, and the league figured him out, or catching's worn him down, or whatever? I mean, again, I'm as baffled by it now as I was the second half of last year, where you kind of hope that I I don't say that obviously you understand what I mean when I say this. You hoped that there was something physical going on with him because otherwise you're saying, why is this going so south for him? But all of that being said, of course, they've got to be better in every way, right? They've got to be better defensively. They've got to run the bases better. I mean, the Angels having 2 guys at third base on Sunday. I mean,
It was bad news bears, those
oh yeah,
guys, right?
like I said, and that's what I said. I mean, look, when the Angels play like that in the finale, you better win 2 out of 3, right? So fine, like it's good, but we need to see the Orioles not doing things like that. And maybe they haven't done anything that extremely terrible, but we've seen them run into outs. We've seen them the other team extra outs defensively. But you've got to be crisp, and those are the kind of things to me. So much of the focus on Brandon Hyde, when people talk about the hitting or the lineup construction or who's playing, who's sitting, all of that, to me, the poorest reflection on him and the coaching staff is just they came out of the gate just looking really sloppy. It wasn't crisp baseball. I mean, guys throwing to the wrong base, things like that. To me, that was the bad reflection on Brandon Hyde and the coaching staff. And, you know, look, just because they win 2 out of 3 and Mike Elias is given votes of confidence, but we've now seen the Pirates and the Rockies fire their manager. I don't think Brandon Hyde's getting fired, like here in the here and now as you
Well,
and
the
I are
Orioles are the
talking.
second worst
But
team in the American League and the fifth worst team in baseball right
yeah,
now.
I mean, they've got to me, and I don't know this. This is purely me speculating because Mike Elias isn't going to. I'm not privy to how Mike Elias truly feels in contrast to what he's saying publicly about Brandon Hyde, which is this is how it always is. You support, you support, you support, you express confidence, and then the axe falls at some point in time. And whether that happens or not, I think is going to be very dependent on what happens these next couple of weeks. We're 2 weeks out from Memorial Day. I mean, it's go time. You've got a schedule here that on paper, now all these other teams are looking at the Orioles on paper and saying, "Hey, this is an opportunity for us." But the schedule's as soft as it's going to be at any point over the rest of the season. This is where you need to. I'm not saying you need to go 13-1 over the next couple weeks, but you've got to win series consistently and start exhibiting, showing some effort or not effort, showing evidence that this is moving in the right direction again. And that's why I said it was nice. You get O'Neill back this weekend. Hopefully that adds some depth to your lineup, he gets going. He starts doing what you expect him to do against left-handed pitching, all of that. By the way, they beat a lefty on Sunday. We need to at least recognize that because that's such a big part of what has plagued them going back to last year. But you got to get the ball rolling in the right direction. But to your point, and this is where as much as I've beat up the offense over the course of 2025, this is absolutely the truth. They need their starting pitching to give them a chance to start gaining some steam and picking up some momentum and feeling better about yourselves and starting to acclimate some of these guys back into their lineup. Westberg's still, his hamstring's still bothering him a little bit, so his timeline's delayed a little bit. But it sounds like he's supposed to start playing games with Norfolk here over the course of this week. It might be another week or so until we see him back. But Kittredge now has 3 rehab appearances under his belt. I'm guessing he's not going to be too much longer. That should hopefully make your bullpen better. You're hoping you can slot him into the 7th or 8th inning. And then what does that do? That knocks everyone else down a peg. And you're hoping then that means your bullpen's better. And you don't have that the couple guys at the, I say the back of the bullpen, but it's almost like the front of the bullpen, guys that are going to have to pitch in the 5th inning of a game where your starter's not doing well, that, it makes your bullpen deeper. So, they've still have a ton of guys on the IL. They're still waiting on, Kowser's just starting to do some baseball activity. He's still, we knew it at the time. That was at least a 2-month injury when that happened. And, so that's going to take him into early June, most likely. So you're hoping that it won't be too much longer after that, but, you're waiting on him. I'm not holding my breath on this one because he's got to show that he can advance through a progression and essentially a spring training. You're still hoping Grayson Rodriguez gives you something in the second half of the season, but I'm not holding my breath on that until I see him healthy and pitching, at least in minor league games. So, they're still missing a lot of guys.
Well, they
But
got O'Neill back, and you talk about the
yeah,
money they spent in the offseason. I don't
I mean,
know. I was never all that hot on that deal, and,
and that's
and
fine.
and that they didn't have to chase Santander, but
Yeah.
it feels like a replacement draft pick, and they spent a lot of money on him.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's hitting 208. What do we expecting him to hit? What 238? We expect him to hit a couple of home
I
runs
mean, I
late
want to
in
see him hit
games
for
when they're
more
winning seven
power.
to two.
I want to see him hit for more power. I
Well,
mean,
he's got to hit 30 home runs to be worth it.
sure. Well, and here's where you try to have some cautious optimism as it pertains to him. And look, the injury history is there. I mean, you didn't have to be Mike Elias to see that. Go look at his baseball reference page and you see how rarely he's even played 100 games in a season. So the fact that he has a neck issue and misses 2 weeks with that, I mean, as long as it's not anything chronic, you live with it and you hope he's healthy. But what you're hoping is if you go look at his numbers right when the neck issue first creeped up and he tried to play through it for about 10 days, but his numbers at that point, they weren't bad. I mean, he wasn't off to a blistering start, but his numbers were fine. Like it wasn't like he was awful. So you're
On his
hoping
best day, he's going to be streaky like Mountcastle.
yeah,
He's going to hit 3 home runs in a week, and then he's going to go to sleep for 2 weeks, right?
basically. And there's another guy. I mean, Ryan Mountcastle. Hey, it was good to see him hit the ball with some authority in Anaheim because it's been a major struggle for him for a long time. I don't put him in the same category, obviously, as Rutschman and Gunnar getting off to the slow start, starting the year on the IL. But go back and look at Mountcastle's power numbers since last July. I mean, it's not first baseman, middle of the order like whatsoever. So it was good to see him hit the ball hard multiple times
Well,
in
you're
Anaheim.
mentioning how this team has sucked for almost a calendar year now, and we go player for
A
player
lot of
for
guys.
player. And I don't
A
have
lot of guys.
anybody. I said there's nobody who's an all-star. There's nobody that's having a career year except for Ryan O'Hearn, I guess, in
Yeah.
his platoon.
Jackson
But
Holiday at his first full season in
yeah,
the
he looks like
majors.
an
Yeah.
average Major League Baseball player.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like he's ascending. I like what I see, but yeah, the overall numbers aren't overwhelming. They're just, hey, that looks legit. You're on your way in
We're
your
not
age
sending him
21
back to
season.
Norfolk. We don't
Of
need Connor
course.
Norby anymore.
And I like seeing, well, even though it didn't work out for them collectively because they lost Saturday and they did nothing, against a, kind of a guy with good stuff, but had a ERA well over 5 and he shuts them down over 5 and 2/3. But
I was
I'm
having
not going
trouble pronouncing his last name because it's long.
yeah, what Kochanowicz? I think it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
little uneasy, and I try to avoid pronouncing someone's name if I'm not sure. That's why that guard the Ravens had Sala, the 6th round pick that they've since cut, but I just referred to him as Big Sala because I his last name good luck. But I like seeing Jackson Holiday in the leadoff role. I kind of that was intriguing to me. I understand you don't want to put too much on him. At the same time, his kid's been under the spotlight since he was in high school. He's Matt Holliday's kid. So he's faced plenty of pressure. Does putting him in the leadoff spot go over the line there?
He doesn't look like his confidence has
That's
been.
what
I
I
mean,
mean.
he
I
looks like
mean,
he's in better shape than Rutschman from a confidence level right now, as far
sure, I
as
think
where
that's
they are
fair.
every night
I
getting
mean,
their
he's been
four
a
or
way
five at
better player
bats.
than Rutschman this year. So yeah, so I'm intrigued by that. And they obviously they lowered him in the order. They faced the lefty on Sunday. He's not going to lead off against left-handed starters, but against right-handers, especially with Mullins having cooled off dramatically here over the last couple, 2.5 weeks or so. I'll say at the very least, I want to see Jackson Holiday hitting a little bit higher in the order. Just whether it's leadoff, whether it's you know hitting him second, I don't know. But that's been good to see. But yeah, you kind of look at this lineup 1 through 9, and we get it. They're at a point where on any given night they're having to rely on an Emmanuel Rivera. They're playing Kerstad more than they would have liked, and unfortunately, he hasn't taken advantage.
Pete
Uh,
Ketchin's got one of the great Oriole names right up there with Chico Simone and the rest of them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Maverick Hanley squeezed bunt and had a sac fly. I mean, it was good to see. I mean, considering how little production they've gotten from Adley Rutschman, it's
But the
nice to
fact
see
that they're
some.
getting at bats in the big leagues for Maverick Hanley is not something in February that Mike
Well, it's
Elias.
well, especially when you threw $8.5 million at Gary Sanchez, which that's looked dubious at best, as far as that signing. But we also know the Orioles back in 23, back in 2012, back in 2014. If you're a team that's worth anything at the end of the season, you've got to get contributions from guys like that over the course of 162. It's got to be some
Well, Taylor
Maverick Hanley.
Teagarden and your
Yeah,
Steve
Taylor.
Pierces and yes,
Yeah,
your Delman
absolutely.
Youngs, right?
Yeah, I mean, you need some of that. So that's where I said Look, Sunday again, the Angels very much helped them win that game on Sunday, but maybe you hope, you cross your fingers, you you say a little prayer, whatever it might be, that maybe that's a sign, especially with Eflin coming back, O'Neill coming back, Kittredge right around the corner, Westberg shouldn't be too much longer. You're hoping maybe things are starting to turn for them a little bit that way. However, they're coming home and they're facing the Twins again, who just swept the Orioles and are red hot themselves. So, we'll see. As Weaver and so many of the great managers would tell you, momentum's as good as the next day's starting pitcher, and we'll see how that looks as the Orioles come home after the off day, and we see Cade Povich take the hill on Tuesday night.
Well, nobody got fired on the trip, right? So at least, like they made it home. Brandon Hyde stole the manager. They won a couple of games over the weekend. That unto itself was something in the middle of last week. We were
You're
like,
starting to
this,
wonder. Starting
yeah.
to wonder at least wonder. Not saying it was a fait accompli by any stretch, but you're asking the question, and that just speaks how bad things have been.
All right, well, they're home, and Luke will be there this week. The Twinkies are in town Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoon. Make sure you remember a noon start on Thursday. I'll be down at Fadley's on Thursday for the Lexington Market Crab Derby. That is Thursday around lunchtime, right around game time. I'll be eating crab cakes. You'll be at the ball game. Come by, you can race a crab against BJ Suroff. He's a competitive dude. I mean, you don't want to you mess with BJ. Talk about 1-1s. I can't beat BJ in a crab race. So that'll be on Thursday down at Fadley's. We're going to be doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour beginning on the 28th again, firing that thing back up down at Fadley's for the St. Louis Cardinals in town on the 7th of May. We're back at Greenmount Station in Hampstead, beautiful Carroll County. Looking forward to get back up there with Dave and Chris and everybody. It is a big horse racing week around here. It's Preakness Week. I will be joined by Donna Brothers. I will be joined by the great Dick Girardi, one of my dearest friends who comes back, and my first compatriot at the Sports First and the News American in 1984 down from Philadelphia via Towson. We'll be talking about a sovereignty-less Preakness, a Triple Crown-less Preakness. Also, Randy Moss is going to be dropping by this week as well. So a little bit of horse racing this week, and I will be in Las Vegas, Nevada this weekend, not just because Sammy Hagar is going to be there, but the Maryland Party, about 2,000 real leaders, the governor, everyone goes out to Las Vegas for 3 days and network and business. I will be doing Baltimore Positive from the middle of the Encore pool. It's nice. I'll have my flip-flops. He's Luke. I'm Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore Positive.